Hello lovely sewing friends, and welcome to your sewing tutorial. Today I am going to show you how to make your own embroidery template using this printout. Now I recently did this on a t-shirt and I got so many questions on how I did it, so I thought that this would be a great little sewing tutorial for you guys. So first of all, I'll walk you through what we've got here. So first of all, we've got our printout. Now these are just some easy cowboy inspired themes that I just got from Pinterest and then put them on this sheet of paper and printed them off. I'll leave a link for you guys to download your very own as well in this sewing tutorial. So we've got that. And then I've got this embroidery hoop. Now I've just had this lying around for a little while. These are very common in charity shops. So we're going to use that later on when we put it on our fabric to hold the design nice and tight. Then I've got some DMC embroidery thread. Now this is also very common in a lot of haberdashery shops. This is just a cotton thread. They come in a really wide variety of colors, and I chose this one because it matches my nails. Now the next thing we're going to have is a pair of LDH paper scissors, because we're going to use them to cut out our designs. Then we've also got a pair of LDH embroidery scissors as well. So I keep them in this little case, and you'll see that they have quite a short blade, but that's only because we're using them to snip off like little bits of thread and whatnot. So you only need a small pair, and I just like to keep them in here because it's a cute little case for everything. And snap that closed. Then I've got some household embroidery needles here, and I've got some fusing, which I'm actually going to show you how to use it when we get into putting our design on our fabric. So that's like an extra little bonus lesson for you guys here. And I've just got my clip-on hand pin cushion there. Super easy. And then of course we've got our birch mini iron here. So let's get started in this little sewing tutorial. Okay, first of all, what we're going to do is I'm going to pop all of this stuff off to one side, but keep my paper scissors. And we are going to select one of these designs to do. Now, I really love this little cow because he's got the little heart on the bottom. But I think I do love the cowboy boot, and this one would be really fun to play around because you can get DMC embroidery thread that's like a shiny metallic golden. So can you imagine doing like, you know, all these little designs in all of that? But today, I think we're going to go with the classic cowboy hat. So I'm just going to roughly go around it. You want a little bit of excess. That will help you later on when we are pinning it to our fabric. So just cut out that one there, and we can leave these to one side and we can use them for another project another time. So I've got that. I am just going to turn on my mini iron. There we go. You may have noticed also that, oh gosh, turn it on at the wall would be ideal. So you may have noticed I've got this wool felt mat, and it basically acts like a little ironing board for my sewing projects. Hence why the mini iron is so good, because it makes sure that my surfaces is nice and protected. So what we're going to do while that iron is warming up, we are going to get, I'm going to pop this off to one side, and we are going to get our fabric. So this fabric here is just a basic, I've actually managed to get my thread in there as well. This is a heavyweight linen. Now I'm just using this smaller piece as like a bit of a tutorial, but the one that I did in my Instagram, I did it on a t-shirt and I learned a few lessons, hence why I'm showing you guys the like adaptations in this lesson. Because what I'm going to do that's different from my previous one is I'm going to use some fusing. Now, I could only find black fusing, so we're just going to go with the black fusing for now. Obviously, if you're like, it doesn't show through, but if you're going to do this for like a sewing project or a gift or something, you might want to choose a color that is more similar to your fabric. In this case, I've just got this black, and I'm just going to show you how to put it onto the back of your fabric. So we've got our piece of fabric here, and we're just going to give it a nice even press to get out those little wrinkles. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my fusing fabric, fusing fabric, and put it the glue side, right? You might be able to see a little bit of a shimmer on there. Glue side down, right? Like that. And I've just placed it in the middle, like that. Then I'm just going to use my iron to gently go over it. Ideally, you would just hold and press, but sometimes I do like to iron it out like this. The difference between iron and press is iron is like this, press is like this. So I just do a couple of passes on our fusing, and what we want to do is melt the glue side of the fabric of our fusing onto our fabric. And what fusing does is it stabilizes the fabric. So this will help us prevent puckers when we're using our embroidery thread to go over our design. So this step I find really important because not only does it prevent puckers in our fabric when we go to embroider, but it will also add a lot of durability to the fabric. This fabric here is a linen. It's a really heavyweight one, about 265 GSM, which stands for grams per square meter. And the heavier the GSM, the more durable and thicker the fabric is. So if I was to do this on a thinner fabric, I would definitely recommend fusing. But if you're doing a high GSM like this one, fusing isn't necessary, but for the sake of what, 1 or 2 minutes, you get your fabric nice and prepared. There we go. And to test it, you kind of go to the corner, and yeah, that's nicely fused on there. If it comes away easily, just give it a couple more presses, but you can see by that, you know, it's completely on there now. And you would only really be able to see that you've got fusing in there if you held it up to the light. But if this is against your body, you're completely fine. Now, when it comes to putting the embroidery hoop on, I really like using an embroidery hoop just because it allows me to have a bit more control. Sorry, I'm just going to unplug that iron. There we go. It allows me to control the tension of the thread as it goes through. So this is my embroidery hoop. Like I said, you can get them fairly cheap at charity shops and op shops. If not, ask a grandmother, she will have one. So what you're going to do is separate the inner hoop and the outer hoop. The outer hoop will have like one of these little screws, right? So you can open that one up a bit, makes it easier in the next couple of steps, and just place that off to one side. What you're going to do is get your embroidery hoop, and let's say that our fusing's about there, right? We can just always make sure, but we can always just pop it like that, and then you kind of see where it's going to be. So what we're going to do, let me just remember how to do this. So we're going to put our fabric over our embroidery hoop, making sure that that fusing is nice and center, right? Like that. Then we get our outer hoop and just slip our outer hoop on it like that. I've always loved how this looks. And then you're going to tighten that little screw there and just pull the fabric through the like little gap in between your embroidery hoops. And embroidery hoops come in so many different sizes. You'll see like gigantic ones and you're like, whoa, like you must really love embroidery to be doing that one. But these smaller hoops are like a couple of dollars, even 50 cents in charity shops before. So like perfect for new beginners. So got our fabric we've got our fused fabric, we've got our fused fabric in our embroidery hoop. Next, say howdy to your cowboy hat. So we're going to place our cowboy hat in the middle, making sure that the design is going to be somewhat, it's a little bit lower down. I can kind of feel through there, and I can see with the sunlight as well. My cowboy hat and my fusing on my fabric needs to be about there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get these quilting pins from Birch as well, and I'm going to place some pins around my design. Now, you only need a couple because these are just to hold the design in place. They're not for any structural integrity. So you can see 3 pins is perfectly good there. Now, next step is threading our needle so that we can get this going. With a DMC thread, it normally has around 6 strands of cotton thread per length. You can see that's like, you know, that's one length there. And then there's 6 little pieces of thread that make up that, that strand. So what we're going to do is we need around 2 or 3, I would say. If the more threads you have, the thicker your design will be. So I've actually got this little bit here from some embroidery I was doing, and it's 2 strands. I think I want to go for 3. So I'm just going to pull off a nice length here because I want to show you guys how to do the whole thing from start to finish. So I've got like a big strand here, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull these 3. So I'm essentially making 2 lengths. So I'm just going to separate those 2 there. Okay. Don't be in a rush when you do this. Some threads are trickier than others, as you can probably tell. So I've got my 2 there. That's my 3. Come on. So I've got 3 strands in my right hand, 3 strands in my left hand. And what I'm going to do is slowly start to pull them apart and ideally avoid a knot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold this length in my mouth so I won't be able to speak in a second, and then I'm going to pull this other length apart. And then this is where knots happen. So taking your time, like I said, don't do this in a rush because you'll get a lot more knots, trust me. You know what? Just gonna cut it there and then just use this length for now, and we'll come back to the other bit later on. So now we are going to thread our needle and we are going to start stitching our little cowboy hat. So what I'm going to do to make it easier to thread is I'm going to just put this bit in my mouth, cut off the ends, and then thread my needle. So be right back. So I've put that in my mouth, cut it like that. I'm using these embroidery needles, so makes it nice and easy for me. I'm just going to use, I think maybe this one, like that. That. Here we go. There we go. All threaded up. And now I'm going to show you guys how to stitch our little design. Hey guys, I'm back. I've just had a bit of a chocolate break, so we are ready and fueled to start sewing. So in the previous video, we got our fabric nice and ironed with some fusing, cut out our design and pinned it to our fabric, got our embroidery needle and our thread all ready to go. So With a design like this, where it's an isolated image, I am going to commit the cardinal rule of knotting my needle and thread. So I'm just going to do a simple little knot here. And the reason that this is kind of like a no-no in the sewing, embroidery, cross-stitch space is that you want to avoid any unnecessary bulk on your fabric. But as this is just an example and it is very isolated, you know, it's not like I've got another design over here that I can kind of loop the thread through to get to this one. It's the best way. You could do something called anchoring the thread, which is repeatedly going over the same area until the thread is nice and anchored. But because this is a one-line drawing onto fabric, you're going to create that anchoring of the thread in a very visual part of the design. So you're better off just having a knot for the sake of like an extra millimeter of bulk in your design. It's just easier. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by holding our embroidery hoop in our left hand. I'm right-handed, so I'm going to be embroidering with my right. And I'm just going to pick a part on this cowboy hat to start with. And then I'm going to take my needle and thread underneath. And you can kind of see I just kind of prodded the design, and I can see where my needle comes up very easily. I'm going for this part right here. So my needle underneath. Sorry, the chocolate I had was a chocolate almond, so I'm trying to currently get some almond skin out of my throat. But there we go, there's our needle, it's come up. And what we're gonna do is a basic running stitch where the thread comes up and then I just pick another point about. So I could easily pick that point to go down, but you know, it's not going to follow the best curvatures of this design if I have a really big stitch. But if I choose a really smaller stitch like that, it's going to take me forever to go around this design. So use some common sense and just pick a nice length here. I've chosen about I would say about 3 to 4 mils, and just go through like that. Just pull the thread through and then pick a point the same type of length a little bit further on down the line and come up and then pull it out like that, and then go back to the end of your first stitch, and then you create this kind of little chain where we're going up and then down. The smaller the stitches, the more control you have over the curves and the angle as well. It also creates a lovely sound as well. I quite like it. So as I go back down into the previous stitch like that, I want to make sure I'm not going in between the thread fibers. This is a really small detail but makes a biggest difference, especially when we remove this paper. So what I'm doing is I'm just kind of pushing all the fibers to one side as I go down so that I don't rip them apart, or put like a big piece of thread in between the fibers so that it separates them out and it looks a bit, you know, a bit odd. So I'm dragging my needle tip to the hole and then pushing the fibers to one side and then going down. Now, this will happen a lot. You'll get a lot of knots when you do this. As soon as you see a knot starting to form, just stop. Don't try and tug it out. Never works. Just take your time when doing this. There you go. Now, when it gets to this point here, I can choose to go to the right or to go up. But as the natural curve of this hat goes from there and around, I'm just going to keep on going around. And you can move your hands into different positions around the embroidery hoop as you go, as you'll find it easier depending on how your hands are located. See, another knot, I just pulled it out. I find this extremely therapeutic. So nice to do, especially when you're watching like a TV show or something. And the great thing about this is that it's kind of, you know, like you do one of them and then you want to do all of them. Like, you know, I'm thinking about making like a quilt or a little bag with all of these little designs on them, because they really are sweet. It's a lot easier going to the straights. After coming off a curve. And if you make a wrong stitch, you can just unthread your needle and go back. I would not recommend trying to like go back up through the hole that you made a mistake on. Just take the thread out of your needle and just unpick it. Because sometimes like the thread fibers underneath just, it's just not worth it. Just unthread it. I'll show you, I think, in these last couple of stitches. But let's also just have a look around here. Look. So you can see by the stitch that I'm doing, it's leaving like a little gap in the middle. So basically it's because I'm going one forward, two back, one forward, two back. You know, I'm kind of jumping. So sometimes I find that the back of the designs look as pretty as the front. Okay. Sometimes it takes a few attempts, but we make do. Coming to our last stitch on this section. Now, it could be quite tempting to like tie another knot and then start over here and then work your way down, or start here and work your way around and whatnot. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start at a point. Let's say, also what I want to do, you can either come up and then down in there and then come up and down in there, or you can cover that with one stitch. It's really up to you. I personally, I think I would do, I'm gonna do that, yeah. Hold me accountable for what I say. I'm gonna go up there, down, up there, and down. You can see how neat it looks. Stop it. Of course it looks neat, it's mine. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go around all of that, and in the next video I'm gonna show you how to remove this to create so that you've got like just that template. Rightio, get stitching. Okay, so we are now to the very last stitch. I'm very pleased with this. I think it's the cutest thing ever, right? So our last stitch and our thread ends on the underside of our design. So I'm going to show you the way that I like to finish off the back. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my needle and thread, and I'm going to go under the last stitch also, and I'm going to go through once twice, and then holding the thread with my left thumb like that. I'm going to go under a third time, but I'm going to do something a bit different, so watch closely. We're going to go under, and then we're going to use that thread to wrap it around twice. I'm going to hold it nice and taut with your thumb. So the needle has looped around that thread twice. And then we're just going to pull it all through, and it's going to knot itself off. Nice and tight, and then using our embroidery scissors, cut off that loose end. And now, look how sweet it is. This is the next really fun part. We are going to remove the paper from this design. So there's multiple ways you can do this. For the big bits, you just pull it away, and it's kind of like perforated paper. Sometimes you just gotta hold down, and you don't want to be too violent with this. Take your time, as always, just take your time. And you can see the design like start to emerge, which is a really fun little experience. I've also got a pair of tweezers with me as well, should I need them. But the paper comes away fairly easily. Of course, if you have a more lightweight paper or like a tissue paper, it'll be really, really useful. You can also use a needle like this just to kind of rip the paper. Let's see if I can do it like here. Let's come back to that. Okay, so can I use my, I don't really, no, I'm not going to use those because otherwise it's going to cut through the, look. There. Oh, it's looking good. This is trust the process. You got to trust the process. And then tweezers. These are my eyebrow tweezers, but the stitches are a little bit loose, you just rub them with your nail or your finger and just kind of let them settle back into place. This is so satisfying. What I love about this method, right? Look how cool that looks already. Just got a little fluffies. Sometimes you gotta find a way in on the side. Ha ha! How good was that? Look. Oh, I'm excited, can you tell? Look how good that looks. I love that. I'm impressed with me. I am really impressed with me. And then just take it out of your embroidery hoop and we'll give it a good iron, shall we? To really, really finish it off. And see, this is such a sweet little design that you can do for like, you know, your sewing projects. Like, that is so sweet. I love it. And now I want to do that cow with the little heart on the bottom. So just giving it a nice finish off for an iron. Oh, there's a little bit there. Come on. There we go. How beautiful is that? Yeehaw! There we go. I hope you guys enjoyed that lesson. Make sure to download those designs or even make your own if you like from Pinterest. And then just print them off and get embroidering. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.